Alhamdulillah, when we last were together, we had reached the ayah in Tafsir regarding Ad-Daba, the beast. We're still in the Tafsir of that. We had recited all the pages leading to the end of Surah Al-Naml, the 27th Surah. So we're going through the remainder of that Tafsir on the beast and the other ayat. And then inshallah, if Allah wills, we're going to be starting Surah Al-Qasas, the 28th Surah today. Just as a reminder, we have a very limited amount left in this month. We have only some 9 days remaining before the moon needs to be sighted again for Dhul Qa'dah. We only have some 8 or 9 days remaining. Those that want to take advantage of fasting the 6 days of Shawwal, whether it's back to back or every other day, the Prophet ﷺ, he said in a hadith in Sahih Al-Jami' that whoever should do so is counted and written as having fasted the entire year. So if someone is able to carry out this noble action, I strongly advise that they do so, and they continue to get the reward. Now, going to Zad al-Masir Fi Ilm Tafsir, we return back to the statement of the Imam, rahimahullah, where he continues his discussion on the beast by saying, quote, "It has also been related from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in another hadith, also from Al-Tabari, in which he said that the believer shall have his face enlightened between his two eyes, and written between his two eyes shall be believer. The unbeliever shall have written between his two eyes unbeliever. The beast, after that point, will release 3 roars. The roar of the beast shall be such that it can be heard and will be heard from the east to the west. This is collected by Imam al-Bayhaqi as well. Hudhayfa ibn Usayd had said, the beast has 3 occasions when it shall come out of the earth. The beast has 3 occasions in which it shall come out of the earth. The first shall be in one of the deserts in a large expanse. Then it will reinter itself. It will reinter itself and conceal its whereabouts. It will reinter itself and conceal its whereabouts. It will then reemerge in one of the largest cities on earth. Then it will reinter itself and conceal its presence. Thereafter, a day will come when the people will be present at the most noble of masjids, which is Al-Masjid Al-Haram. At that point, a section of the ground in that area will open. The people will run in terror. And they will not be able to escape it. The beast will come to the man who is engaged in prayer. And will state, "Are you trying to seek refuge in the prayer? I swear by Allah, you were not one of the people of Salah." then that man will be overturned. But the face of the believer shall be magnified. Abdullah ibn Amr said of the beast, that it will place a black spot on the face of the unbeliever. His face will then become ashen. The believer shall have a white spot that brightens his face. People from that moment will know the difference between the believer and the unbeliever. I already myself, Abdullah ibn Amr, have left from the area after the Hajj season. And this is collected by Imam Tabari. Now, when Allah the Exalted says that the beast, it will speak to them, there are three things that we know the beast is going to say. Because tukallimuhum is in the plural form, which means more than one statement is going to be said. The first statement the beast will utter is at the end of ayah 82. Indeed, the people did not have certainty of our signs. This was said by Qatada. The second statement of the beast will be to announce the falsehood of all religions besides Al-Islam. This was said by As-Sudai. The third statement the beast will utter is, this is a believer and this is an unbeliever. This was mentioned by Al-Mawardi. Now this ayah, تُكَلِّمُهُمْ, this portion has been recited by Ibn Abi Abla and Al-Jahdari as تَكْلِمُهُمْ, which is from the word kelm, which means to injure. This is a permitted recitation from one of the reciters. When Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu was asked about the possible meaning of speech as well as injury to be in this expression, so tukallimuhum wa taklimuhum, he shall speak to them and injure them. Ibn Abbas said in reply, all of that by Allah the beast will do. The beast will speak to the believer and injure the unrepentant sinner and the unbeliever. So the ayah, تُكَلِّمُهُمْ أَنَّ النَّاسَ, shall speak to them, indeed the people. Now, أَنَّ النَّاسِ is recited in this fashion by Asim, Hamza, Al-Kasai, while the others recite it differently. Now, likewise, it has been recited by Ibn Mas'ud and Abu Imran Al-Jawni, تُكَلِّمُهُمْ بِأَنَّ النَّاسَ وَتَكْلِمُهُمْ أَنِّ النَّاسَ. All of these are valid. After this, the Exalted One says, on the day that from every ummah a group shall be gathered, who denied of our signs, and they were heedless. So on the day that from every ummah a group, the word fawj means a congregation or a grouping. This is referring to the leadership and those who followed them in kufr. They shall be gathered, and the proof shall be established against them. Part of this has been mentioned in Surah Al-Naml, ayat 17 already. Until when they shall come. This means when they come to the place of reckoning, Allah will say to them, did you deny my signs? Now this form of questioning is not for gaining information. It's one of rebuke, where Allah is threatening them. You did not have knowledge of this matter? Meaning, you did not know the truth until it came to you at this time after your death? You did not believe the falsehood of what you were doing until finally you're here on the Day of Judgment? You didn't think about the truth of what Allah revealed until now you're here? How is it? أَمَّاذَا كُنْتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ. How is it that you were acting in this way in the earthly life when I commanded you and forbade you from impermissible things, but you still went in unto them. When the word comes to them, now we've already explained the word coming to them in Surah Al-Naml, ayah 82, by how they oppress themselves by committing idolatry. فَهُمْ لَا يَنْطِقُونَ, they will not be able to give, they will not be able to speak. وَهُمْ لَا يَنْطِقُونَ, they will not speak. And ayah 85 means that they can't give any account of themselves to defend themselves regarding what they've fallen into, because it's come to them the evil of that which they called upon themselves. After this, Allah then says, do they not see that we made the night to be still in and the day so that one could see, and that are signs for people who believe? Ayah 86. The day being made so they could see within, meaning so they could see and then seek their sustenance, because the daytime is where most people engage in work. Allah the Exalted then says, on a day in which the horn will be blown into, and all in the skies and the earth will swoon except for whoever Allah has exempted, and everyone shall come forward at this time. Now, on the day where the horn shall be blown into, Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu said, this is referring to the first blowing of the horn. This is referring to the first blowing in the horn. Then all that is in the skies and the earth will swoon. The scholars of commentary all say, whoever's in the skies and whoever's in the earth will swoon, meaning that they shall die. So whoever the horn reaches, that's in the skies and the earth, shall die. They shall feel the terror of that horn and they shall die. Except the one that Allah has exempted. Those who Allah has exempted from the death at the first horn are of three categories. Those exempted from the death and fright of the first horn are, firstly, the martyrs. This was said by Abu Hurairah, Ibn Abbas, and Sa'id ibn Jubayr. The second group of those exempt from the horn of death and fright are Jibreel, Mikael, Israfil, and the angel of death. Those exempt are Jibreel, Mikael, Israfil, and the angel of death. After that first horn's blowing, Allah the Exalted will cause them to die after that. This was mentioned by Muqatil. The third category of people exempt are those who are already in the paradise from the maidens and those besides them. And likewise, whatever is in the fire because the inhabitants of both places were created to remain forever. All of this was mentioned by one of our scholars, Abu Ishaq ibn Shaqla. Close quote. Now there's just a few points that need to be remembered in mind. So when Allah says that when the horn is blown, that all in the skies and the earth will swoon except for those that have been exempted. Now the three categories mentioned are the martyrs, because we've been told by Allah that in general the death is only once. We've also been told in the hadith in Sahih Al-Jami' that one of the gifts that the martyr receives is that the martyr will not feel the fright on the day of resurrection. So that hadith in Sahih Al-Jami', that fright, so the martyr does not receive that fright. So he's exempt, or she is exempt. The second category being the angels Jibreel, Mikael, Israfil, and Malak al-Maut. Why? Because Jibreel and Mikael are the chief among the angels. Israfil, because he's blowing into the horn. That's the first horn blow. He's blowing into the horn. And the angel of death, why? Because the angel of death and his companions are doing what? They're collecting the souls. So how can they die during the horn? They can't. Now this is all tied in with a hadith that is in Sahih Al-Jami'. Again, where it's mentioned that when the horn has been blown, the angel of death in the end is told to take the lives of those that are left, which are Jibreel, Mikael, Israfil. And then Allah the Exalted causes the angel of death to die and commands the horn to sound by itself. So this is where this understanding is coming from. Third and final is those in the paradise. This means those who have been created to be there. So the maidens and all the creatures that are already in the paradise waiting for the day of resurrection, they don't die because they've been created to be everlasting. The creatures that are already in the fire, they've been created to be everlasting because we've already been told in a simple enough place, if you want to look at it in Surah Al-Bayyinah, the expression being referred to by those who believe is Khalidina fiha, that they are forever therein. For the believers, Khalidina fiha abada, the same expression. So both groups are present, in which they will be in whatever place they are for all eternity. And this was discussed, the Imam mentions Abu Ishaq ibn Shaqla. Abu Ishaq ibn Shaqla was a big alim. He died in the year 369 Hijri. Abu Ishaq ibn Shaqla. He is the teacher to numerous scholars. He was alive during the time of Abu Qasim al-Khiraqi and took from some of the same scholars around his time, Abu Qasim al-Khiraqi, as well as Ibn Battah, Ubaydullah ibn Battah, and other scholars besides. He's a well-known teacher in Iraq and one of the finest scholars. Now, the Imam then says, quote, and when the Exalted One says, and each one on that day, meaning of the living who they die, then they're resurrected, shall come to him dakhirun. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu said that they will come to Allah on the day of resurrection. Ibn Abbas, Mujahid, and Qatada say dakhirun means saghirun, in a state of humility, low, abased. So they shall be brought forward. And this shall come to pass. The Exalted One says after this, and you shall see the mountains passing away. The mountains that you believe to be solid, they shall pass away with swiftness like the clouds of the sky. What this refers to, this is proof on that this shall come to pass and that Allah shall certainly do this. Because Allah is in charge of the judgment regarding all things. And Allah shall cause all things to pass. And He is informed of that which you do. Then Allah the Exalted says, whoever should come with a good deed, then he has better than it. And on that day they shall be saved from the great fright. Now, whoever comes with a righteous deed, now we've already explained the difference between the Hasana and the Sayyah in Surah Al-Naml, the 6th Surah, Ayah 160. And when the Exalted One says, they shall have better than it, meaning they shall have better than it, meaning the reward that they get shall be better. As said by Ibn Abbas, Al-Hasan, and Ikrimah. So whatever good they do, they shall have better than that, and 10 like it. As said by Zayd ibn Aslam, based on the well-known hadith. And they will be safe from the fright on that day. Now, when you look at this expression, they shall be safe on the fright from that day, the fright coming on the day of resurrection, as said by Abu Ali al-Farisi. They shall be safe from that fright and whatever shall come thereafter. So, whatever comes, they will be safe. Because the people of paradise are safe from that fright. The fright of eternal judgment. So on the day of resurrection, when the terror of the day of resurrection is unveiled regarding the fire for all eternity, those who belong to the people of paradise shall be safe from fright of that. And whoever comes with a sayyi'ah, a sin. Now in this context, the commentators are referring to major shirk. Then they shall be dragged on their faces and thrown on their face into the fire. Shall they not be rewarded except by what they did? Meaning this is the reward for that which they did in the earthly life of the shirk that they committed. Close quote. Now what this refers to is the category that we have of people. Some people have read this ayah and thought that whoever comes with an evil deed, then they shall be thrown on their faces in the fire. Shall they not be rewarded except by what they did? What they did is referring to the major shirk. So again, we see the two categories on the day of resurrection. Those who have been promised and are bound for the paradise, and those who are bound for eternal judgment. So on the day of resurrection, Allah mentions those who came with the hasana, meaning they did not commit idolatry. They are believers. They are safe from the fright on the day of resurrection. That fright is the great fire, where anyone who enters into it for eternity never comes out. Those who reject faith shall be punished by what they did. What do you mean what they did? The idolatry. Now some people have this misunderstanding. They think that unbelievers being punished in the fire, they're being punished because they ate pork, or they're being punished because they did this, they're being punished. That's not why people go to the fire. People go to the fire because they commit idolatry or they reject faith. Not indulging in eating pork or fornication, those other things, they are symptoms and signs and egregious sins, but they're not the basis of why one goes to the fire. So someone says, well, if you don't wear the hijab, you'll go to the fire. There's no textual evidence for that. There's no textual evidence for that. If you reject that the hijab is from the religion, then you could go to the fire because you're rejecting something that Allah revealed. But if you are disobedient and you don't wear it and you're sinful and you purposely neglect it, but you know that it should be done, then you are guilty of flouting some of Allah's commands, which you may or may not be judged on, because the believers will be reckoned on the day of resurrection. Unbelievers will not be reckoned on the day of resurrection. The reason for this is a hadith in Sahih Al-Jami', in which the Prophet ﷺ said that believers will be reckoned by the deeds that they did in this earthly life. And the reckoning will be greater for what deeds they've done. And those that are unbelievers will not be reckoned. Now, what does this hadith refer to? Well, we know that Allah has said that those who reject faith, that their deeds are like a mirage in the desert. So that means they have no deeds. So what is there for them to be reckoned with? Nothing. There's nothing for them to be reckoned with. So they go straight in unto judgment for eternity. Those who believe are reckoned because of what they've done of righteous deeds, but they may have nullified it, or they may have committed other sins or done other things, in which case Allah shall cause them to be purified. And that purification could be the time that some of them spend in the fire, in which they're taken out. Or they might deserve to go into the fire for a period of time, but through supplication or intercession, that they're saved from that. Some will go in and be taken immediately out. Some will go in for a period of time and be immediately taken out. This is why it's so important. This is why it's so important that people repent. This is why repentance is so important, because it saves you from the catastrophic judgment such as that. This is why the scholars, even though individually the ahadith about Salat al-Tawbah or Salat al-Tasbih, individually those ahadith are weak, but together the meaning is sahih. Why you'll find most scholars, even though they say that individually they're weak, they'll still recommend that people pray Salat al-Tasbih or what have you. They'll say you should do it once a week or once a day because of the hadith. If someone is able, let him pray it once a day. If someone is able, let him pray it once a week on Jumu'ah. And if he's not able, then someone's able, let him pray it once a month. And if not once a month, once a year. And if not that, once in his life. Why? Because precisely this judgment that is coming, where Allah will reckon the people. So we always want to make sure that at the end of every day, before we lay down, whenever our sleep is, that we repent from whatever sins we've done, so that you go back in the best state. Because you die without repentance, all scholars are agreed that you are bimashi'atillah, you are in the will of Allah, and it is Allah's precisioned judgment whether or not He punishes you to relieve those sins, or whether He pardons you. Some people will be pardoned because of other extenuating circumstances that Allah has ordained and that He knows. Some people will not be. Now, you don't know whether your circumstances are extenuating or not. You don't know. So what you don't do is you don't say, well, I'll leave it off. Because Inna Allah ghafurur rahim. Indeed, Allah is forgiving and merciful. That's true. But part of Allah's forgiveness and mercy is also purification. And that purification might involve some judgment in where gold has to be separated from the iron ore by being blasted out with fire. So you don't want to take those type of risks. The Imam rahimahullah, he then says, quote, and the Exalted One has said, indeed, I have been commanded that I worship the Lord of this land, which has been sanctified by Him, and He possesses everything, and I've been commanded that I be among the Muslims. I have been commanded, meaning that the Prophet ﷺ has been told by Allah to say to the idol worshippers, I have been commanded that I worship the Lord of this land, who sanctified it. Allati harramaha, which was recited by Ibn Mas'ud, Abu Imran al-Jawni. And this area, this land which has been sanctified, is referring to Mecca. And its sanctification means its respect. It is forbidden to engage in killing or combat therein. Taking war slaves. One should refrain from hunting or even cutting its trees, as is mentioned in the hadith in Al-Bukhari and Muslim. And He possesses everything, meaning He's the creator and master over everything. And I've been commanded to be among the Muslims, meaning those who are sincere to Allah with Tawheed. وَأَنْ أَتْلُوَ الْقُرْآنِ, and that I recite the Qur'an to you. Now whoever seeks guidance, then he's guided for his own self, meaning he has the reward of his guidance. And whoever is led astray, then he's fallen off the path of guidance. And I am only one of the warners. I do not have control over you. I can only convey the message. Now, the commentators have mentioned that this particular ayah was abrogated by Surah At-Tawbah, the 9th Surah, ayah 5. And then Allah the Exalted says, and say, praise be to Allah. Means say to whoever is astray, praise be to Allah who sustained us by the acceptance of what we've been forbidden from. For indeed, He shall show you His signs in the earthly life. And some of those signs include things such as the smoke as one of the signs of the end of time, the moon being split, and other signs. As mentioned by Ibn Abbas, people shall see signs in the sky and in themselves and in their sustenance, as said by Mujahid. One of the signs is the killing on the day of Battle of Badr, as said by Muqatil. And some people will see the signs in the hereafter, and they will know that their earthly life was indeed a test. This was mentioned by Al-Hasan al-Basri. And then when the Lord says, and your Lord is not unmindful of what you do, وَمَا رَبُّكَ بِغَافِلٍ عَمَّا تَعْمَلُونَ, and your Lord is not unmindful of what you do, Nafi' ibn Amr and Hafs and Asim recited as ta'malun, whereas the others say amma ya'malun. Now this ayah is a direct threat to them, because they shall be rewarded for their deeds in terms of punished for their idolatry, or rewarded for their good deeds if they were believers. We then come to Surah Al-Qasas. This surah is a Meccan surah, other than one ayah, which is ayah 85, where Allah the Exalted says, إِنَّ الَّذِي فَرَضَ عَلَيْكَ الْقُرْآنِ, indeed the one who ordained upon you the Qur'an. This was sent down while he was at Al-Juhfa, during the time that he was making the hijrah. So this was revealed between Mecca and Al-Medina. This is the statement of Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu. But Al-Hasan, Ata and Ikrimah said that because Mecca, the areas around the precincts were included in that area, it can still be considered part of Mecca. It's only been claimed by Muqatil that the one area is a Medinan ayah. الَّذِينَ آتَيْنَاهُمُ الْكِتَابَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِ هُمْ بِهِ يُؤْمِنُونَ, those who we gave them the book from before, they believed in it. Surah Al-Qasas, ayah 52, up until ayah 55. لَا يَنْبَغِي الْجَاهِلِينَ, it is not for the ignorant ones. However, that ayah is Meccan, along with the others. And as we had said before, ayah 85 was sent down between Mecca and Al-Medina. Allah the Exalted, He starts by beginning the surah, Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim, Tasin, Tilka ayatul kitabil mubin. نتلو عليك من نبأ موسى وفرعون بالحق لقوم يؤمنون إن فرعون علا في الأرض وجعل أهلها شيعا يستضعف طائفة منهم يذبح أبناءهم ويستحيي نساءهم إنه كان من المفسدين ونريد أن نمن على الذين استضعفوا في الأرض ونجعلهم أئمة ونجعلهم الوارثين. طاسين. These are the ayat of the clear book. We recite upon you from the news of Musa and Fir'aun in truth to a people who believe. Indeed, Fir'aun had exalted himself in the earth, and he made its people to be different parties. The weakened were in one group, in which their boys were slaughtered and their females were spared. And indeed, he was from the corruptors in the earth. And we desire that we should put upon those who were weakened in the earth and make them imams. And we make them inheritors of the earth. Surah Al-Qasas, the 28th surah, ayat 1 to 5. Tasin. We have already discussed this in Surah Al-Shu'ara, the 26th surah before. So we shall not explain it again. Indeed, the Fir'aun exalted himself in the earth. This means that he transgressed, forced himself, and dominated the land of Egypt. And he made its people into parties, which were groups, into different groups and types in order to serve him. A group were weakened from among them, and this group is the Bani Israel. And by weakening them, it meant the expression يَسْتَضْعِفُ, weakened, it means that they were enslaved. And he was from the corruptors because he was killing and doing actions of disobedience. He slaughtered the boys, he had the boys slaughtered and had the girls spared. But we sought to take those who were weakened and enslaved, meaning the children of Israel, and make them imams, people who would be followed in good. These would be governors and kings in their own right. And we made them to be the inheritors, meaning of the governance of Fir'aun after his drowning. The Exalted One then says, after this point, وَنُمَكِّنَ لَهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَنُرِيَ فِرْعَوْنَ وَهَامَانَ وَجَنُودَهُمَا مِنْهُمْ مَا كَانُوا يَحْذَرُونَ وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَىٰ أُمِّ مُوسَىٰ أَنْ أَرْضِعِهِ فَإِذَا خِفْتِ عليه فألقيه في اليم ولا تخافي ولا تحزني إنا رادوه إليك وجاعلون من المرسلين فالتقطه آل فرعون ليكون لهم عدوا وحزنا إن فرعون وهامان وجنودهما كانوا خاطئين وقالت امرأة فرعون قرة عين لي ولك لا تقتلوه عسى أن ينفعنا أو نتخذه ولدا وهم لا يشعرون وأصبح فؤاد أم موسى فارغا إن كادت لتبدي به لولا أن ربطنا على قلبها لتكون من المؤمنين وقالت لأخته قصيه فبصرت به عن جنب وهم لا يشعرون وحرمنا عليه المراضع من قبل فقالت هل أدلكم على أهل بيت يكفلونه لكم وهم له ناصحون فرددناه إلى أمه كي تقر عينها ولا تحزن ولتعلم أن وعد الله حق ولكن أكثرهم لا يعلمون. And we shall establish for them in the earth, and we shall certainly bring to pass Fir'aun, Haman, and the army of both of them, that they should have taken heed, which they did not. We revealed to the mother of Musa that he should be fed, but when she feared upon him, she put him inside of a container and placed it in the river. But we said, do not fear, do not mourn. Certainly they shall return him to you, and he shall be made from among the warners. He came to be in the presence of the people and the family of Fir'aun, so that he might be shown to be an enemy to them and a hardship. Indeed, Fir'aun and Haman and their armies were sinners altogether. The wife of the Fir'aun had said, upon finding him, he is a delight and coolness of the eye for myself and you. See that he is not killed. It may be that he benefit us, or that we might take him as a child. But they did not know what they had done. When the time came, the feelings of the mother of Musa were enraptured. She was concerned where she might believe that she might give him up if she was not returned, and her heart was ill at ease. But she was given the command so that she might be among the believers in trust. She said to the sister of the boy, follow him. So she did so and watched out for him from a direction where they could not see her from afar. We then forbade from him that he would breastfeed from any of the wet nurses from before he was returned to his mother. His sister came forward saying, shall I show you the family of a household that can take hold of him for you? And they will look after him for this period of time. So we returned him to his mother by the plan of the sister, so that her eye might be cooled, and so that she might not mourn, and that she also might know that the promise of Allah is true. But most of them do not know. Surah Al-Qasas, ayat 6 to 13. The Exalted One has said, and so when Fir'aun and Haman and the two armies, when they were to be informed, meaning they were informed that their destruction would be at the hands of a man from the children of Israel. And Allah showed them this, but they did not take heed. And this begins the statement where Allah said, and we revealed to the mother of Musa. Now there are three things that occurred with the mother of Nabiyana Musa alayhi salam. Number one, she had a strong feeling, and this was said by Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhu. Number two, the angel Jibreel alayhi salam came to her and informed her of what would occur, as said by Muqatil. Thirdly, she saw a vision in her sleep of the events. This was mentioned by Al-Mawardi. As for the name of the mother of Nabiyuna Musa alayhi salam, Muqatil said that her name was Yukhabid. Yukhabid. Now, when Allah the Exalted mentions the feeding of Nabiyuna Musa alayhi salam from her breast, Yukhabid was a woman from the tribe of Lifi. Now, there was a woman from one of the tribes that came to the mother of Nabiyuna Musa alayhi salam. When she set him down and gave birth to him, she turned her affair over to this woman. She came out and saw her in front of the people, and she was concerned that they might come into her presence, the guards of the Egyptians, and take her. When the time came, she said to his sister, "Look out, and look out for the boy." Nabiyuna Musa alayhi salam was taken and wrapped by the mother, and then put into the container. Now, this placing in the container, some say was 3 months after being nursed, some say 4 months. But he was placed in the container, in the basket, because she feared that the boy might be killed, as was the decree of the Egyptians. But she placed him in the basket and was told not to fear. Do not fear that he will drown, nor that he'll be destroyed. And so she set him off. That basket would find its way to the household of the Pharaoh of the time, because the basket floated up from the river. Now, some have mentioned that it was obtained by the servant girls of the wife of the Pharaoh. Some say it was the daughter of the Pharaoh. Some say it was the assistants of the Pharaoh. All this is mentioned by As-Sudai, Muhammad ibn Qais, and Ibn Ishaq. But the boy, much to their lack of knowledge, would be an enemy to them. They took him into the household, and scholars of commentary say in the beginning he would be an enemy to them because his religion was different. He did not worship idols. He was an enemy to their men and a hardship for their women, because he would eventually wind up destroying their men by the drowning that would come, and their women by not feeding from them, and their women would be destroyed. The wife of the Pharaoh at the time, and mentioned here in the ayah, is Asya bint Muzahim, who is from the children of Israel. The Pharaoh had married her, and she had said, "Let this child be a coolness to our eyes." The Pharaoh up until this time had only daughters. And she said, "It may be that he brings benefit to us or some good, or we can use him as a son." But they were not aware that he was going to be an enemy to them, or that their destruction would be at his hands. The children of Israel were not aware that he would come to be that either. They were not aware of what was going to be done, as said by Muhammad ibn Ishaq and others. So the mother of Nabiyuna Musa alayhi salam was concerned and remembered Musa often, and thought of him and wanted him to be returned home. And she nearly revealed the identity, or came looking for him. But she was able to stay herself by the command of Allah. Because she knew the promise of Allah was true and would come to pass, she said to the sister, "Go and watch out for your brother." And she did so. She looked from afar at where he went and watched him. But those present were not aware that she was looking. And he, Allah, forbade him from taking from the milk of the other wet nurses before he was returned to his mother. Now this prohibition was one where he was prevented from breastfeeding from them. The scholars of commentary say it was 8 days and nights in which he would not accept the breast of any of those women. It became an annoyance and a hardship for them. So the sister said to them, "Should I show you a household that you can leave him with, where they can breastfeed from?" And when they remarked, "Where?" she said, "My mother." And they said, "Does she have enough milk?" And they said, "Where did she get her milk from?" "It is the milk of the older son Harun from before the decree." So when they brought the child forward, it took the milk. And so the child was returned back to the mother. We discussed this in Surah Taha, ayah 40. So that she might know, meaning the mother, that the promise of Allah is true, meaning that her child would be returned. And she saw this carried out. But most people do not know, meaning most people do not know that the promise of Allah is true. And most of the people did not know that Allah's promise was to return the child to her. Most people do not know. Allah the Exalted, He then says, وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ وَاسْتَوَى آتَيْنَاهُ حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا وَكَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ وَدَخَلَ الْمَدِينَةَ عَلَى حِينِ غَفْلَةٍ مِّنْ أَهْلِهَا فَوَجَدَ فِيهَا رَجُلَيْنِ يقتتلان هذا من شيعته وهذا من عدوه فاستغاثه الذي من شيعته على الذي من عدوه فوكزه موسى فقضى عليه قال هذا من عمل الشيطان إنه عدو مضل مبين قال رب إني ظلمت نفسي فاغفر لي فغفر له إنه هو الغفور الرحيم قال رب بما أنعمت علي فلن أكون ظهيرا للمجرمين فأصبح في المدينة خائفا يترقب فإذا الذي استنصره بالأمس يستصرخه قال له موسى إنك لغوي مبين فلما أن أراد أن يبطش بالذي هو عدو لهما قال يا موسى أتريد أن تقتلني كما قتلت نفسا بالأمس إن تريد إلا أن تكون جبارا في الأرض وما تريد أن تكون من المصلحين وجاء رجل من أقصى المدينة يسعى قال يا موسى إن الملأ يأتمرون بك ليقتلوك فاخرج إني لك من الناصحين فخرج منها خائفا يترقب قال رب نجني من القوم الظالمين. When Musa reached his full age and power, we gave him judgment and clear knowledge, and likewise how we reward those who show goodness. He entered the city at a time when he was away from the people, and he found therein two men fighting, one from his people and one from his enemy. The one from his people sought his help against the one who was his enemy, and so Musa engaged him and prevailed over him. He said, "Oh, this is from the action of Shaitan. Indeed, he is an enemy and a stray one, clear." He said, "Lord, indeed I have oppressed myself, forgive me," and he was forgiven. Indeed, he, Allah, is the forgiver and the most compassionate. He said, "Lord, in how you favored upon me, I cannot be manifest to those criminals." So he moved in the city fearfully, watching out. And the one who had sought his help yesterday called for him. And Musa said to him, "Indeed, you were an oppressor, because just before yesterday, you had been asking for help, and now here you are disputing yet again." He wanted to take hold of the man who was his enemy to assist the other man. But the man said, "Musa, do you seek to kill me like you killed that man yesterday? You only want that you might be an oppressor in the land, and you are not one of those who are upright." This put fear in him, and a man came from the other side of the city quickly, saying, "Musa, indeed, the centurions, they are coming about looking for you so that they might lay hands upon you and kill you. Leave now. I'm just trying to help you." So he left, fearful, watching his way. He said, "Lord, save me from the oppressing people." Surah Al-Qasas, the 28th surah, ayat 14 to 21. Now when he reached his power, this ayah is mentioned in Surah Yusuf, the 12th surah, ayat 22. And the scholars, when referring to ayat such as these, he reached the peak of his power, or reached the peak of his strength, which was discussed in Surah Al-An'am, the 6th Surah, 152. The scholars refer to two things when discussing this matter. One, they say he reached 40 years of age. This was said by Mujahid, Qatada ibn Zayd. But a smaller group has said 60 years of age. The scholars of commentary say further that Nabiyuna Musa alayhi salam remained with his mother until he reached the age where he could eat solid food. Then he was returned to the people who had found him from the household of the Pharaoh, and he grew up under the supervision under his wife, and they took him as a son in their residence. He entered the city one day. Now this is referring to the main city in Egypt at the time, or a city near the main part of Egypt. Now there was one point where the Pharaoh had rode off to take care of business in war, and Musa was not with him. Musa came riding past and went into the city. And Musa entered into the city to see what was happening. Now, at the time that Musa went into the city, Nabiyuna Musa alayhi salam, it was a festival for the people, and they were engaged in merrymaking. It was the middle portion of the day, while some have said it was between Maghrib and Isha. And therein he found someone from the children of Israel, a man, and someone from his enemy, from the Egyptians. He found them disputing and fighting, and the man from his people asked assistance against his enemy. And so, at this point, when Musa came closer, Nabiyuna Musa alayhi salam came closer, he saw the Egyptian was mocking the Israelite because he was taking his time carrying a bundle of wood to the residence of the Pharaoh. He sought to help him, but Nabiyuna Musa alayhi salam, in helping him, wound up striking the enemy man and killing him, prevailing over him. Once this occurred, he went away from the scene. Nabiyuna Musa alayhi salam felt remorse because he had not intended to kill the man, and said, "This is from the actions of Shaitan, for he indeed is an enemy to the son of Adam, astray and a clear enemy." And he sought Allah's forgiveness, and Allah granted it for killing this man by accident. He sought forgiveness not because of a sin, but because the Prophet does not engage in killing until he's ordered to do so, or unless he's ordered to do so. He said, "Lord, indeed, how you favored me with forgiveness and goodness. I do not want to be among the criminal people or an assister to the unbelievers." Now, this is a proof then that the Israelite which Nabiyuna Musa alayhi salam assisted was an unbeliever at that time. Now, there was another point where Nabiyuna Musa alayhi salam was in fear of himself and was watching out lest anyone lay hands upon him or take him or kill him. And he saw the same Israelite seeking his help against another Egyptian. And Nabiyuna Musa alayhi salam said to the Israelite, "You are a wrongdoer and you have wronged yourself." Meaning by trying to engage in combat or fighting yet again because the man was contentious. And then when he laid his hands upon the enemy, the Egyptian, he said to him in this matter, this was the statement of the Israelite, without any dispute. Because at the time Nabiyuna Musa alayhi salam was angry, and he said, "Do you seek to lay hands upon me and kill me as you killed the man before?" And so Nabiyuna Musa alayhi salam, in witnessing this, knew that now more than one person knew about the killing. And so now he was concerned, and a man came from the opposite side of the city and warned him of what was to occur. This man was a believer from the household of the Pharaoh. Now, some say he had different names, and there are disputes regarding what his name was. We've already mentioned his name in Surah Al-Mu'min, ayat 28. As far as the group that was coming for Nabiyyuna Musa alayhi salam, they were searching for him, and they'd already made the agreement that they were going to kill him, and they were searching from place to place. So he set out and fled from Egypt, fearing for himself, saying, Allah, save me from the oppressing people, meaning the idol worshippers that were searching him out from the Egyptians. And this is what happened to Nabiyyuna Musa alayhi salam upon reaching the full strength of his age. Now the scholars of commentary say he came out afraid, and Nabiyyuna Musa alayhi salam had neither provisions nor anywhere to stay during this time. The time it took between Egypt and where he was headed to was 8 days. He had no way to tell for sure where exactly he would end up, for he was terrified and left the city. Close quote. Now, just as a point an important point that should be explained, Nabiyyuna Musa alayhi salam commits this act in Egypt. He then winds up having to leave. Now again, this requires you to look at your maps. As I've said before, the Sinai Peninsula is not part of Egypt. Sinai Peninsula originally is part of Arabia. It was not taken and made a part of Egypt until Muhammad Ali Pasha came and conquered it and took it. So during this time, Midian is the Sinai Peninsula. So Nabiyyuna Musa alayhi salam flees from Egypt. Remember, at this time, there was no Cairo. Cairo was built by Al-Qahir Billah around 972 Hijri. There was no Cairo. There was no Fustat. The capital areas were Thebes, Elephantine, and Aswan, which at that point was known as Swanit. Those were the main areas. So Nabiyyuna Musa alayhi salam would have most likely been fleeing from South Egypt near Thebes or Swanit, and then made his way either across the land bridge into the Sinai Peninsula, where there was close land or the water was shallow enough, or possibly taken a boat or gone across. We're not sure. He gets into Midian, which is the Sinai Peninsula. That's an 8 days journey. I would be more inclined to say that he probably made the trek from the south up until the land bridge area. Because if he had merely gone to the coast from Thebes and taken a boat across, it would have been far quicker than 8 days. So I'm more inclined to think that he ran into the countryside, moved up north until he got to where he could cross over into the land via the land bridge area, and then went over into the Sinai Peninsula, which at this time is part of Arabia. Those people there are Arabs. So the language of Arabic and Hebrew are closely related enough to where someone could be understood. But you have to remember, this is 3,000 years ago. No cars, no vans, none of these things. So he makes this terrifying journey. And you have to remember as well, you didn't have governments there the same way they have here. Governments here will be often composed of companies or unrelated businesses or corporations. And the governors, the prime ministers, or other people are caretakers. In his time, the heads of governments were families, not businesses or corporations. So you'll go into one area that's controlled by one family. And when you move so many miles in another direction, that area is controlled by another family. Now, Nabiyyuna Musa alayhi salam is an Israelite. So he's moving into Midian, which is Arab. So he has no connections. He doesn't know anyone. But by going to another country, that's the safest route. Why? Because the Egyptians aren't going to go into Midian to try to retrieve Nabiyyuna Musa alayhi salam, to try to extradite him. Because Egypt, even at this time, had an extradition policy. But they weren't going to go into Midian to try to extradite him. Why? Because it's another country, number one. And number two, they're at war with Midian. If you get a chance to look at Egypt's history with the Midianite or the Midianite people, Egypt for the longest time during the Pharaonic period was at war with the Midianites. Sometimes the Midianites were taken prisoner by the Egyptians. Sometimes the Midianites evaded capture. Sometimes they controlled big sections of northern Egypt. But there was always this hostility. So by running into hostile territory, Nabiyyuna Musa alayhi salam preserved his own life and protected himself from the bounty hunters or the centurions or whatever the pharaoh of that time period had to lay hands upon him and possibly kill him. So Nabiyyuna Musa alayhi salam goes into that area. Now, having grown up in the residence of the pharaoh, he would have at least done some traveling. And if he had been shepherding as a young man, he would have done some traveling to at least know the pathways or the off-road areas to get there. But you need to understand, if you're making an 8-day journey without knowing for sure what your location will be, that's a very terrifying time. And only Allah can help you at that point. Because the scholars of commentary mention, and you can see from the ayahs that it's alluded to. He leaves without provision. It doesn't say anything about him packing anything or taking. He leaves with the clothes on his back, without food, without drink. He has nothing. So wherever he's going to reach, he's hoping that there will be food and drink. Now remember, he's in the open elements. No food, no water. Open desert. You get a map, you look at the topographical maps of Egypt and Midian. Midian is extremely hot. Now he's going from South Egypt, which its normal annual weather is around 70 degrees or 60 degrees Fahrenheit in the winter, and 100 degrees and more Fahrenheit in the summer. Midian is higher elevation with mountains and hotter than that. And there's no shade in Midian because it's open desert. At least Egypt in the time of Nabiyyuna Musa alayhi salam had more greenery. It wasn't as desert as it is now. What you're seeing with how desertified Egypt looks is the expansion of the Sahara Desert, as well as the carrying of sand, which has high levels of salt in it, that destroyed all the palm trees. But prior to that time, in the time of Nabiyyuna Musa alayhi salam, if you read the works of Herodotus and other scholars at that time that had visited, they mention Egypt as being a very lush, green country, which sounds bizarre now. But you have to remember, this is after the encroachment of the Sahara and the rest of the desert. Nabiyyuna Musa alayhi salam leaves from there to being openly exposed to the desert. Crackling hot. No sunscreen. He wouldn't have needed. Has high levels of melanin, but still. No sunscreen, no umbrella, no tent. So you have to hope to sleep in between two rocks or on the way. Blazing hot sun in the daytime. Dipping below, in the nighttime, below zero. Animals of all different types. Asian lions, African lions, tigers, antelopes, all different types of animal, ibex. Everything is out there. And the African lion is double to 2.5 times the size of the Asian lion. That's what's out there. So you have to realize he's not only going into hostile territory regarding people, but all the land around him is hostile. Now, the Imam rahimahullah, he then says, quote, the Exalted One then says about him further, quote, وَلَمَّا تَوَجَّهَ تِلْقَاءَ مَدْيَنَ قَالَ عَسَى رَبِّي ربي أن يهديني سواء السبيل ولما ورد ماء مدين وجد عليه أمة من الناس يسقون ووجد من دونهم امرأتين تذودان قال ما خطبكما قالتا لا نسقي حتى يصدر الرعاء وأبونا شيخ كبير فسقى لهما ثم تولى إلى الظل فقال رب إني لما أنزلت إلي من خير فقير فجاءته إحداهما تمشي على استحياء قالت إن أبي يدعوك ليجزيك أجر ما سقيت لنا فلما جاءه وقص عليه القصص قال لا تخف نجوت من القوم الظالمين قالت إحداهما يا أبت استأجره إن خير من استأجرت القوي الأمين قال إني أريد أن أنكحك إحدى ابنتي هاتين على أن تأجرني 8 حجج فإن أتممت 10 فمن عندك فما أريد أن أشق عليك ستجدني إن شاء الله من الصالحين قال ذلك بيني وبينك أيما الأجلين قضيت فلا عدوان علي والله على ما نقول وكيل. Whereas he went forward, he came upon Midian, and he said, it may be my Lord will guide me to a clear way. When he reached the water wells of Midian, he found therein another nation of people seeking to water their flocks, and he found in one of the watering holes among them 2 women watering their flocks, but struggling. He said, what ails you? They both said, we cannot water our flocks until we've brought forward the herd, and our father is an elder man. So he assisted by watering the flocks for them. Then he turned to take shade, and he said, Lord, indeed, from what you've sent down upon me from your good I will take. But I indeed am poor. One of the women came to him shyly, saying later, my father's calling you so that you might come to us, and he can reward you for watering our flocks for us. When he came to him and narrated to him what had occurred, all the events, the father said, don't be afraid. You're safe from an oppressing people. One of the daughters said, Father, give him a job. Indeed, the best of whoever among you takes a job will take a job and be strong and trustworthy. The father then said to Nabiyina Musa, indeed, I would like to marry you to one of my daughters here, on the condition that you serve me for 8 years. When you complete 10 years after that time, then you will have as what you will. I do not want to make the matter difficult for you, and you will find me, if Allah wills, to be trustworthy. Musa said in reply, that shall be then a covenant between myself and you. 2 rewards that shall come, and I shall complete, and there shall be no difficulty for me, so do not worry. Allah is witness and trustee over all of what we have said and agreed. Surah Al-Qasas, the 28th surah, ayat 22 to 28. So when Nabiyuna Musa alayhi salam set out, he did not know where he would wind up, but found his way to Midian. He didn't have any food on the way except for the leaves of trees. He then came to a water well in Midian. It had greenery and other things that could be seen. So he took whatever he could find. He found a nation of people watering at the hole. And he found from besides that nation 2 women. These were the 2 daughters of Nabiyuna Shu'aib alayhi salam. The elder daughter's name was Sabura. The younger daughter's name was Abra. And they were struggling greatly with their flock. The scholars of commentary say they were struggling with that flock in order so that they don't bother the other people, and they felt that they could do it themselves. And they did not want the other people to be prevented from using the water well. Nabiyuna Musa alayhi salam then came to them saying, what ails you? Meaning, what's stopping you from watering your flock? They said, we cannot water our flock until we bring forward our herd. And we cannot do so except by ourselves. Our father is an elderly man. Meaning he can't water the flock and come along by himself due to his advanced age. So the well had to be used by them, and they had to bear the responsibility. So, Nabiyuna Musa alayhi salam, he assisted them in watering their flocks. He went to another well and took some water and assisted them so that they might take their flock. Until everything was completed, he then turned to the shade of a tree and said, Lord, you've sent upon me much good, but I am poor and I need food. So the khayr that he was asking for was food. Now, one of these women overheard him, which is why she later came to him and said what she had said. Now, the question, one of them came to him, and this was after she had informed her father of the good that Nabiyuna Musa alayhi salam had done towards them. So he sent one of the daughters to call Nabiyuna Musa alayhi salam. Some have said that it was the younger daughter Abra, some have said that it was the elder Sabura, but she came shyly, meaning she had covered her face with a portion of her garment. Now, one of the reasons why she came shyly, because it mentions the word istihya, shyness, is that she was known for her shyness and piety. And also because of the fact that she was acting as a messenger of her father. She had said, my father wishes to reward you for watering our flocks. But Nabiyuna Musa alayhi salam, when he heard this, he initially did not want to follow her back. He didn't want anyone to find him so that he might suffer and be laid upon by the hands of the Egyptians. So, what happened is eventually he decided to follow her. But the wind at one point blew up some of the skirting of the woman, which showed part of her body. And Nabiyina Musa alayhi salam said to her, "Dear female slave of Allah, you go behind me and lead me on the way so I can follow up front." In this way, Nabiyina Musa alayhi salam avoided seeing the form of the woman. And this has been mentioned in a hadith by Faryabi. So, when Nabiyina Musa alayhi salam came to Nabiyina Shu'aib alayhi salam, he informed him of all what had happened to him while he had been in Egypt, from the time of his birth up until he left. Because the expression وَقَصَّ عَلَيْهِ الْقَصَص means that he told him everything. So then Nabiyuna Shu'aib alayhi salam said, "Do not be afraid, you are safe, because there's no authority of the Pharaoh in our land. We are not in his kingdom," meaning that of Egypt. One of his daughters then said, the eldest, "Give him a job, to give him a wage, because he will be trustworthy towards you." So Nabiyana Shu'aib alayhi salam gives Nabiyana Musa alayhi salam a job, saying, then he says, "I want to marry you to one of my daughters, but you will work for me for 8 years, and then 2 after that. But the 2 are optional." Nabiyana Musa alayhi salam was then told, I do not want to put any difficulty upon you by having you work 10 years, so 8 years are necessary, but 2 just for extra. And you will find me to be someone who is a good companion and keeps his word. Nabiyana Musa alayhi salam then said, "Then let that be the agreement between myself and you." So Nabiyana Musa alayhi salam kept that agreement. 8 years, but then also the 10, after which time he married his daughter. He completed that, and there was no difficulty upon him at all. He said he then called upon Allah as the trustee, meaning the witness in this agreement. Now Nabiyana Musa alayhi salam, the Prophet of Allah, had made this agreement, as is understood by all the people, by vast majority of the people of Tafsir. And we even have a narration of the Prophet ﷺ where this is mentioned in more detail. He was a companion of Madian, and his other name was Yethro, as said by Ibn Abbas. Some have said that his other name was Yethron. Now, the one who Nabiyana Musa alayhi salam was married to, some have said it was the younger daughter, Abra. Some have said it was the elder. But scholars are agreed that the woman's name was Safura or Sabura. It has 2 pronunciations. But this is the woman that he married. And he married her after completing the 10 years. And in this way, after marrying this woman, he began his own family. Close quote. So we see then here from Nabiyana Musa alayhi salam that he marries this woman. The name can be pronounced Sabura or Safura, one of the 2 daughters of Nabiyana Shu'aib alayhi salam. So we now know that Nabiyana Musa and Nabiyana Shu'aib alayhi salam shared the same time period. And at the time that Nabiyana Shu'aib alayhi salam is in Madian, Nabiyana Musa alayhi salam comes to him. Now this is before Allah speaks to Nabiyana Musa alayhi salam at the burning bush. This is before that time. So he comes in unto him. And he winds up marrying into him. Now it's from here that we get a lot of benefits, because we see that, firstly, Nabiyana Musa alayhi salam, we see the permissibility of someone who is a man seeing women struggling in an emergency situation such as that. We see the permissibility of assisting and helping, because those women were not his mahrams. They weren't. In an emergency situation, a man is permitted to assist someone, whether they're a kafir, whether they're a Muslim, whether it's a male, whether it's a female. Emergency situations are required because being able to water your flocks can be the difference between starvation and death, and the difference between eating that day. So it is very important that you're able to water your flock. And if the man is old and can't move, and the daughters are the only ones to do it, here we also find the evidence of, in an emergency situation or permitted situation, the permissibility of daughters working. We find the evidence here. But one of our scholars, one of my teachers said to us that this ayah also provides the permissibility in certain emergency circumstances of women working, but that this ayah is the exception to the main rule, which is what? That in general, women are keeping house and keeping at home and learning the particulars of home life so that they prepare themselves for marriage. And that this situation is different because Nabiyyuna Shu'aib alayhi salam was elderly and couldn't carry out his obligations. Further, one of my teachers also said, you see that Nabiyyuna Shu'aib alayhi salam had his own business of watering flocks, and these women were running it, which, again, the same teacher said to us that this shows that Muslims should be, for the most part, working for themselves whenever possible, and not necessarily working for someone else. They should be in some type of business for themselves. Further benefits that we get from this shows that the family can set a condition, because Nabiyyuna Musa alayhi salam comes from outside. So the family, what would be the benefit in the father saying, I want you to work for me for 8 years, then another 10, then another 2, after which is 10 years, I'll marry you to my daughter. What would be the benefit of that? Well, because if you work with a man for 8 years, the father gets to see what in the potential husband? What angers him? What makes him happy? How trustworthy he is? Will he adhere to the job properly? Will he adhere to customs? How will he function among the people? Because remember, this is a Hebrew marrying into Arabs. So they want to make sure. Now, both of them are shepherding people. But the Arabs, for the most part, are cameleers. Not all of them, but most of them are cameleers. And the Israelite shepherds are mostly what? Men that farm sheep for the most part. So he wants to make sure that Nabiyyuna Musa alayhi salam can make the transition from merely your agrarian farming and your other things like sheep and goats to camels, which are different. You're dealing with a different type of livestock. Can he make that transition? Can he function? How trustworthy is he? Trusting him with money. Because if someone acts as a farmer, they go into the city and they sell animals, they sell cattle, and they come back with the money. Does he come back with the exact amount of money? Does he know how to sell? Does he know how to barter? Does he know how to care for animals if they're hurt? You sometimes need to deliver young calves. The mother's pregnant, she lays down to deliver the calf. Can you pull out the calf? Can you clean the calf? Can you milk the mothers? Can you milk the cows? Can you milk the camels? Can you do all these types of things? When they need to be sired and the camel starts to build, the male stud camel starts to build a house for the female camel to go into sire. Can you oversee the siring to make sure that none of the semen gets wasted and falls on the floor because the animal might slip during the sexual intercourse and ejaculates and it goes on the floor? You could lose a whole season's foaling, a whole season's reproduction by that happening over and over again. So it's a farmer's business to make sure that that animal is able to sire another calf. You can find all that out about one person for 8 years, how strong they are, whether they're lazy or not, whether they adhere to the business plan, whether they can follow directions. You find out all these types of things in 8 years. So it's from here we get the evidence that a family can put conditions in a marriage. They can put conditions. And those conditions are presupposed upon whatever is agreed by everyone. And if that has been agreed by everyone, then those conditions can be put. So some people complain now about, I had to wait a year, I have to wait 2 years, try 10. And the father is watching everything you're doing and examining and making sure that you're adhering to everything you're supposed to be doing. That's when you really have a tough time. Now, we'll come to the last portion. And it is where the Imam says, quote, and so, after completing this period of time, Nabiyana Musa alayhi salam marries into them and becomes a shepherd from among them. Nabiyana Musa alayhi salam, when he comes to Mount Sinai, it is on his right. And the place that he comes to is a blessed place, because it is where Allah the Exalted shall address Nabiyana Musa alayhi salam. Some have said that the tree where he is addressed is a grape tree. Some have said that it is a box thorn. We've already discussed much of this in Surah Al-Naml, ayat 10. We see that Nabiyana Musa alayhi salam is given the signs of Allah the Exalted, of the hand, which is whitened, and of the staff that becomes a snake. We already see these signs. And much of this we've already commented upon. However, Nabiyana Musa alayhi salam also mentions in his discussion with Allah the Exalted about how there were people seeking to lay hands upon him to kill him. And Allah reassures him that no such thing shall come to pass. It would be later on, after the freedom from Egypt, that he would be given the book. Close quote. So this is where we find Nabiyana Musa alayhi salam. At the end of ayat 28, we find him entering into a family. And ayat 29 on is about his life and what happens, and the discussion that he has with Allah at the base of Mount Sinai after coming and finding the burning bush. So inshallah, next week we'll be going from ayat 29 onwards, his return to Egypt and the events that unfold from there. We say يقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم أستغفر الله إن الله غفور رحيم الحميد الراحمين ولا إله إلا الله. Is there a question over what we've covered so far today? Question? Question? Yes.
Out of the Jewish prophets, peace be upon them, which was the greatest prophet?
Question is, out of all the Israelite prophets, which was the greatest prophet? Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam ala rasulillah. Imam ibn Kathir, Ibn Al-Jawzi and others say that the greatest prophet of the children of Israel is Nabiyuna Isa alayhi salam. The reason being because he is known as Al-Masir, the anointed one, and also because he will come back at the end of time and rule as a king globally. The other Israelite prophets were not afforded such a luxury, and they also, although they might have fed more people, like in the case of Nabiyuna Musa alayhi salam, or done more miracles, it's what Nabiyuna Isa alayhi salam represents, and that he comes with the revealed law of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is a universal law, whereas the other Israelites, their law was particular. His is coming with a universal law because he belongs to that governing. All right. Is there another question? Yes.
What was the full name of the Pharaoh's wife again, Sheikh? And how did a believing woman marry into the Pharaoh family, Sheikh?
Question is regarding the name of the wife of the Pharaoh of that time. Her name is Asiyah bint Muzahim. Asiyah bint Muzahim. Now the question is, how did a woman who was believing wind up married to the Pharaoh at the time? The answer to the question lies in the ayat before, where Allah says that He killed the males and He spared the females, which were taken as slaves. So this woman wasn't married in the sense of she was asked for her hand. She was just taken in force and just married. Because this is what they did. They turned these women into slave women and they made them serve them, or they took them as wives, sometimes not even wives, and they raped them. And the boys, they had a project that was in place where every so many years they would cull the boys. Then they'd leave them for a season, and then they would cull them for the next few seasons. Some say it was every 3 years, so you'd skip a year, which would mean that Nabiyuna Harun alayhi salam was at least 3 years older than Nabiyuna Musa alayhi salam. Because Nabiyuna Musa alayhi salam was born during one of the years of cull, whereas Nabiyuna Harun alayhi salam was born before one of those years. Now if she's still nursing him, that means he's between 2 and possibly 3 years old. So he was born before one of the years of cull. Right. So this is what would happen. So these women were slaves. And whatever men were not killed during a year of cull, during the years before culling year, they were slaves as well. Right. Any final question? Yes.
When the beast comes and he's going to anoint the faces of the believers and then mark the faces of the unbelievers, and then everybody will know who are the unbelievers and who are the believers. Is that what they will die on, or is that the current state of that time?
Question is regarding the beast anointing the faces of the believers and then stamping the face of the unbelievers and stating who is a believer and who is an unbeliever. Is this the state that they will die upon, or is this something that is it at that time? Alhamdulillah. That I don't know, because the beast is one of the signs of the end of time, but it's before the cool wind comes. So it is possible that some of those people might become unbelievers, they might not. But I can only say that as possibility because I don't have a text where I can say, okay, those people are stamped. Those people that are stamped might be sealed as believers, because it doesn't say this will happen to every single believer.
Okay.
It's just those that he encounters, those that the beast encounters. So it might be that those believers he encounters are sealed as believers, and those unbelievers he encounters are sealed as unbelievers, because it doesn't say that he will go and do this globally. It mentions he comes out 3 different occasions. And if you notice, they're all near in Mecca or around that area, right? So it's going to happen somewhere in that area. But it doesn't mention him, for example, getting to far off areas, like in Europe or other areas like that. So it seems that the grasp of the beast is localized. Final question? Final question? No? Okay. So pause here. Allah has blessed us. We've finished the tafsir of these 6 or 7 pages. So Allah is blessing us. We're able to cover a great amount of ground. So we say Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika wa ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk innahu ghafurur rahim yarhamir rahimin wa la ilaha illa Allah wassalamu alaykum.